What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back. This is the Deep Corner, episode 11. I'm Rob St. Clair, and I'm pleased to be joined today by the Team LVC captain and team rep and the VLA director of league development, Mr. Chris Hosley. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Much appreciated, and I'm glad to be here and kick this thing off.
About time I had someone from your squad on this program, huh?
Somebody from the East,
right?
Chicago boys.
Right. So, what have you been doing to stay busy while we're all shut up at home these days?
As far as staying busy, I teach phys ed, so that's my day job. So it's a little bit different nowadays than it usually is. So I'll wake up and kind of get some schoolwork done. So usually it's 4 or 5 hours of grading, and for phys ed it's not a lot of paperwork. We're doing activity logs and stuff, so it's a lot of grading, and then I'll get a workout in the middle of the day at some point. Have a couple meals and back at it the next day. So we're not really here in New York. We're not allowed to leave. I'm in a more suburban area, but we're still not allowed to leave or travel and go about the state anywhere. So it's a lot of home life right now.
Yeah, well, we might be in for a little bit more of that over the whole month of April. And you've got a club that you run as well that I want to talk about a little bit later.
Yeah,
but first, I want to talk about you as a player first before we get to all your other different hats that you wear in the volleyball world. You're in charge of a team. You're on the board for the league. But you, like everybody else I have on the show and everybody else involved in the league, come from a strong volleyball background. So you've played your whole life, and you played in college at Springfield. Is that right?
That is correct, yeah.
And while you were there, you won 3 national championships.
That is correct. Yeah, 3 in a row, 2001, 2, and 3.
That is crazy. So for people that don't know much about Springfield, tell us, first of all, where it is, and then what they've been able to build as a program on the D3 level.
So Springfield's a school. It's a sports-related school in Massachusetts, and for phys ed, it's one of the best ones in the nation. So that's kind of where I ended up. As far as the program, Charlie Sullivan's the head coach there, and he's one of the assistants, like video scouting coordinators on our national team. So he started at Springfield as a GA and ended up taking the program over from Sean Byron, who, if you remember that name, was at Ohio State for a few years and now coaches at Marist. So Charlie took that whole program over, and since I think it's like 98 or 99 when he took it over, has almost turned it into a dynasty, and he's got double-digit national championships, and like I said, we won 3, was 2001, 2002, and 2003 while we were there, and not so successful our senior year, but 3 out of 4 isn't too bad.
Not bad.
Yeah.
And that is carry over to recently. Every single year in the D3 level, Springfield is in the top 2 or 3 teams in the country, and they contend at the D3 Nationals every year. But the game obviously is not the same as it was in 2001 through 2003. So what's from watching Springfield or from watching D3 volleyball in general, what's different between now versus when you were playing, and what's the same?
So at Springfield, my first year there was the first year they adopted rally scoring and the libero rule. And when you did rally scoring, everything was to 30. So it was a lot different. So it was like a marathon play in any set. But when we first got there, it was like a total change in your mind and how you play, because in high school and when I graduated in 2000, it was all side-out scoring, and games were to 15, and everything, 5-set matches were all to 15, and then we get this whole rally scoring thing, and now it's a completely different game. It becomes more of a side-out game. This libero thing, which is now common, was a total mind blower when you step on the court and now you got some other guy with a different jersey. But those are 2 big differences. And I guess if you want to get into the scheduling too, Springfield now plays with the abundance of Division III schools, which is amazing. I don't know the number, but there's an astronomical amount compared to when I played. That we didn't play in a Division III conference. We played in a Division I conference, and it was Penn State, Harvard, George Mason, St. Francis, Rutgers, Princeton, and Juniata and Elson NYU were the 3 Division III teams. But that was the schedule we played, home and away. So it was a pretty powerful schedule. So all this changed as far as the landscape, like you said.
Yeah, that's a huge difference. And now the D3 opportunities have grown so much that the guys in non-con can fly to California. They can fly or travel anywhere, like Carthage in the Midwest, for example, another good D3 team that they can see top caliber competition on their level earlier in the year, and then play a conference schedule. It better prepares the guys. So it's the D3 level as an option for kids coming out of school is exceptionally high level. I talked to Griffin Shields about that when I had him on the show. And just viewership wise, when I watch the the D3 national championships last year. I watched the whole tournament. I was blown away by how good those teams were. Those teams are
Yeah.
for real.
Absolutely, and it kind of started back when I don't know when they changed. It must have been 5 or 6 years ago, 7 years ago. And Springfield came out, and I think they won the first, maybe one, and then New Paltz was put together, and that's only about an hour. Springfield and New Paltz from where I am in Albany, New York, are only about an hour 15 away each. So New Paltz has put some great years together, and some of the athletes that have come out of there. Same thing with Springfield, and like you said, just if you can stream it and watch some of the championships every year, I think the volleyball level has just exploded in Division III. So it's definitely a delight to watch.
Oh yeah, and you've grabbed guys from both of those programs for your Team LVC squad now. So I want to talk about kind of the origin story of your team. LVC, short for Legion Volleyball Club, right? I kind of go back and forth between calling it LVC. I call it New York Legion sometimes when I commentate matches. If there's one that you prefer, please tell me. But tell me how was the team born, and where has it been in the past several years, all the way through 2020?
All right, so it kind of started back in club. I played for what was called the Foreign Legion Club, and it was run by a few guys from our area who were from Russia, the Kiefer family, and they kind of started. It was the Foreign Legion Club. So after I graduated college, I was like literally the day after graduation, my buddy Tucker Shore called me. Tucker's a Rochester kid, and there was this Rochester Nails club team, and he's like, "You want to go to Atlanta and play in the 2004 Adult National Championships?" I was like, "What's that?" He's like, "You believe me? You want to go?" So I got with this Rochester Nails team, and it completely blew my mind, and the experiences and the connections and the relationships I had with not only the teammates but other teams that were there, and just to see all the volleyball going on. And we played, I think that year was the A level, and then eventually worked our way up over the next couple of years to the open level. But that team, I was like, oh, this is great, I'm going to do it every year. Well, they didn't go back the next year in 2005, so I was like, all right, what do I do? So I just took that adult club, that Foreign Legion Club, dropped the foreign part, and just started with Legion. And from there, we went back, 2005 all the way until this year in 2020. So this would be our 15th or 16th. And from there, it's kind of transformed from Legion to just LVC for a little bit shorter, a little easier to say, especially when you're marketing and stuff with juniors. LVC just kind of become the easier thing to market. So that's kind of where it started. But yeah, it goes all the way back to the men's club that was established way before I was even probably born.
That's old school.
Yeah.
So, this league is in its first year of existence, but these teams are not even close. These teams go so far back, and you've since adopted the Team LVC name for the club that you run in the upstate New York area, right? Can you talk about what? Well, so Loy runs a club as well. We've got a handful of those in the VLA. What's running a club like?
Busy, very chaotic. It's a year-round process, and because we have both boys and girls. I think we have 11 total teams. It's like 7 girls and 4 boys, which we're trying to expand. But it's chaotic, and it's a lot during the year. It's a lot even middle of the year and preseason and off season, whether it's running camps or like doing tryouts. So to put things kind of in a nutshell, it goes tryouts from probably August, September time, and then we start practices in November, and then you're practicing and through till about January, which is when the tournament season starts, just kind of like boys and everything, and then you get all the way through till about the end of probably April, May, June, depending upon how far your team plays. So you're practicing and running tournaments through that, and then once that's over, we run camps. So it's a year-long process, and in addition to the phys ed job I have, it's like I'll finish my job there coaching at high school and then go to the gym for 3 hours, 4 hours a night for club practice. So just a lot of moving parts, and it's chaotic, but it's totally worth it. Help, because that's one of the big things, just grow the game that we've always said, and it allows us as coaches and as adults to help give back to our young kids and see the same passion that we had when we grew up.
Yeah, it's not a job for somebody who doesn't love to be surrounded by volleyball constantly. So yeah, you and all of our other club director guys definitely have that trait in common. So talk to me a little bit about the volleyball culture in upstate New York, like in Albany, where you are, in Buffalo, where we were a couple of years ago, especially on the junior boys level, and how that's been kind of growing over the past several years.
Yeah, so it was pretty scarce as far as the Albany, New York area. So it was pretty scarce back when I was playing, I played for 3 different clubs in 3 different years because I just kept folding. And it was Beverwyck, and which probably nobody's even heard of. The Foreign Legion Club, which branched off on, and it was CD Select, which still kind of exists. So right now there are a handful of clubs, which is great. I mean, there's your CD Select, which is a little bit more north. Capital Sliders, which is a Shenandoah-based, school-based club, which we're starting to work with as well. And then there's the LTC for the boys. So it's been growing. It's not quite the hotbed that Buffalo is or Rochester is in Western New York, which is 3-4 hours to the west of us. But we're definitely growing. It's getting a lot better. We do have high school boys in our suburban council, so we have I think there's like 18 schools on our council that have boys volleyball in the fall, which is different from some other areas in the United States, but we kind of run it in the fall. But the level has gotten better. It just takes time. You don't see it year to year. It takes time that we've been putting in over the past 6-7 years. We have boys and other clubs as well, and it has been growing. I've seen kids, like you said, go to New Paltz, even kids that are on our team, like AJ Wachowski, Mike Marchman, kind of all played club in our area. So those are the few and far between. Mike Pelletier is another one, and Andy Fishman. So there's a bunch of them, but we kind of went through, and the clubs in this area, which Marshall, when he was on that team, it was the standout. There's not much of a team behind him, so that's kind of what we're trying to do, is develop more thoroughness with the boys' quality, because we'll get like a player here or there, but we're not constantly pumping out teams and teams of great players. So it's, like I said, it's gotten better, but we still have a lot of work to do as far as developing the culture and the thoroughness of our area.
Well, yeah, it's hard to pump out teams and teams of high quality players. Almost nowhere in the country can do that, but you actually have a lot more going than like where I am right now in Michigan. Boys volleyball at high school doesn't even exist, or it might be in its first or second year right now. It's way younger than it is out on the East Coast. So it's interesting to me how regional boys volleyball is. Girls volleyball is a national powerhouse of a thing, especially at the college level, which we all know. But we're all doing our parts in our respective areas, and with this league and several of us in other endeavors, Loy especially, to grow the boys game however we can, and that's putting this VLA product in front of a bunch of juniors is a phenomenally good way to do that. So we'll talk about the league a little bit later. I want to talk more about your LVC roster now for the pros. First of all, the people who are watching the video can see you've got the sick sweatshirt with the pink LVC and the flamingos on it. For the people that are listening to audio, LVC dominated by the flamingo thing, which I just love. Flamingos all over the jerseys, everything is so cool. Where does that come from?
So that's another national story, and it's like Adult Nationals has kind of changed a lot of things that I did, and really put me into the whole mix of things, and I stayed with it, and we ended up picking guys from the local clubs and local colleges, and we had that George Mason connection with a lot of our players, and Lance Rogers, another one of those guys. But it kind of developed all the way back, and Will Foley was actually on the team these years back in, I want to say it must have been like 2007, 8, 9, where the Flabango was like this new thing, and Matt Smith and JJ Seidelman ended up getting one and carrying it with them to nationals, and he'd sit by the pool, have a few beers, right out of the Flabango, and then he carried it everywhere. So, and it was named Sweet Sweet Flo from Maddie, and ever since then we've kind of adopted that flamingo kind of mascot, and he's always carried that thing around. He probably still does. But we kind of put it into our logo, and it's kind of taken off. And then when we put them on our uniforms, in one of the events we did, everybody kind of loved it. So
iconic.
Took off from there,
iconic. I just love the look. And when you guys aren't on the court, you all have matching flamingo print T-shirts, don't you?
That's right. Yep, we do. It's like we'll go out to a restaurant or something. We got the flamingo print T-shirts, and I think that was Mike Pelletier, and I think we were at Loy's place, and he just bought like 25 T-shirts, and we all wore them around, so it's pretty cool.
That's incredible. I gotta get myself one of those.
Absolutely. I might have a couple extras. So
excellent. So your guys' first taste of professional caliber, like the first startup professional league in the U.S. was the PVL that the USAV ran as a division at Open Nationals several years ago, and I've gotten to talk about that a little bit with the people who ran their teams through that league while it existed. So what was your experience with that, and how did your team kind of mature from playing at that level?
Yeah, and that's like, it's a great word, it's mature, because a lot of us, some did and some still do play overseas, but a lot of us didn't, and a lot of us ended up taking a job right out of college and trying to play as much adult volleyball and traveling around to the Dobles and the ones down in Virginia Beach and the Popeye Dells on the East Coast. So we do all the big the volleyball classics, all the big tournaments that we could. So then having this PVL, this platform that USA Volleyball created was like a dream come true. We're like, oh, we can now call ourselves professionals or whatever it was. So getting into those PVL tournaments, it was all region based, so it wasn't very hard for us because there's no other real adult teams that were looking to do that from our region, and they sponsored us, and we went for the 3 or 4 years I remember that they had it, and it was awesome. I mean, a couple of the years we had 14, 15, 16 teams, and there was no teams that were slacking. I mean, we had teams that were deep that could put 2 different lineups out there of guys who played professionally, played Division 1, 2, 3, whatever it was, but they were a solid team. So for us, that was a huge maturation process, and I think one of the years we ended up getting towards the bottom third, and then we were kind of creep back up towards the middle. And I think one of the last ones we ended up finishing towards the top third, but nothing ever crazy. But for a lot of us, it was a huge experience. From the first kind of pro considered volleyball that we had. But then, like you said, we kind of matured that and, kind of adopted that and turned a lot of those values that we had as far as a team into the new league with the VLA. So, but it was an awesome experience, like you said.
Yeah. So a lot of the guys that are that played in those PVL years are still around. They're still on the roster. And it was like you said, the guys that didn't go play overseas but were good players, had good college careers that wanted to stick around and travel and play some ball. But playing against like I had just Brian Lewis on the show, like he said, when you play against some of these names and some of these rosters at PVL Nationals for the first time, you're like, whoa, it's a big level up. So
it is.
The guys, a lot of the guys that you have on the roster still went through that, and that's great because that's what builds your team's experience for now playing VLA, right?
Yep, and part of that maturation process was getting rid of that eye opener, and be like, oh, we're playing against this guy, we're playing against this guy, he played here, he played there, and it wasn't that we couldn't compete, it's just that we hadn't seen that level of volleyball consistently, and that was one of the big, like you said, maturation and growth processes for us, that we could play at that level, but to be able to turn it around in 2 hours and play another match like that, and then again 2 more times the next day was very tough. And those guys went through years of it in their gyms and practicing, and all their practice at that level. And for us, it wasn't. So that was one of the big things, is just getting accustomed to constantly playing. And it's more of a mental thing, just the mental drain and playing that high of a level, and not having to think, having to react, having to do all those things at such a faster pace. It helped us, and it helped us get into kind of where we are now and the team that we've had. And a lot of us, it's helped us just grow as players.
Yeah, the depth thing is a good point, and the mental taxation of playing volleyball at that high of a level. It's not just about how physically tired you get after a match. Being that mentally engaged over the course of, I don't know, at PVL, you're probably playing at least 2, sometimes 3 matches in a day. That's a lot of volleyball. So, and talk to me about how the relationship between depth and team chemistry works. You would like to be able to swap some players out to keep them fresh, but doing so might sacrifice a little bit of chemistry, right? So when you have a deep roster, like for example you do now, what is the right way to manage that from your perspective?
It's tough, and being friends with everybody on the team, it becomes a hard thing as far as playing time and putting the best quality product out there. But we always try to travel with depth, and that's been one of our things, because just going back to some of the first year we played nationals, we went in 2005 to Denver with 7 or 8 guys, and we were just exhausted. So after that, we kind of always wanted to just have depth at every position. The best part about that is that all of our guys are usually on the same page, and I know you talked about the Pineapple guys having that family atmosphere, and that's one of the big things that we've always preached, is just being a family, and always having each other's back, whether it's on the court, off the court, and we've been good friends on the court, off the court, and even new guys that come in, they have that same mindset, and they adopt right into that family atmosphere. So it's not as hard as it seems, but it's a challenge to know who to put out there, and like you said, without sacrificing chemistry. But to the chemistry part, it's not a science. It's kind of just a feel, and as long as the guys buy into that atmosphere and you're putting the team first over yourself, then everybody kind of has that same idea and same mindset, that the chemistry always stays there.
Yeah, well, I think you deserve a lot of credit for creating a team culture where that's possible, where you can bring in a bunch of players that you haven't been playing with for the past several years, and you can
Yeah.
throw them in right away, and the team just embraces them right away, and it seems like you guys don't skip a beat, and that brings me to my next point, where now in the last year or two, you guys have brought in some pretty big names and
Yeah.
some guys with some serious volleyball resumes, some that are playing in absolute top caliber leagues overseas. First of all, how did you find guys like a Blake Leeson, a Nick Scherzen, a Maxime Hervois, a Christy Blau? How did you guys come across those people, and what was the process of getting them acclimated with the team?
Yeah, I mean, that's very interesting how that all panned out. We had so Christy Blau is from Rochester,
Right.
and we used to play a ton of beach out there. And CJ Denk, who's our coach, I used to play a ton of beach with him and against him. And Christy was young playing out in Rochester, and he just started playing on the beach. And that's kind of the first time I ever met him. But he was a great kid, and I had a great relationship with him. And as he went through the ranks, and obviously he went to Ohio State and played with Scherzen and Max and Blake, that connection, I still had some conversations with Christy, but then Sean Ermy, who was with us at Loy's Place in championships, so he was there, and Sean was one of those guys that went to Springfield. So I had that connection with Sean, also through Rochester with Christy, but Sean was kind of like the catalyst in getting those guys on board. And, kind of once Christy got there, he's like, oh, I got this other guy, Blake. And I was like, all right, yeah, bring him on. And then he's like, oh, I got this guy, Nick. And I was like, yeah, he's pretty good. We'll take him.
I've heard of him.
Yeah, so that's kind of how that panned out. Is just the connections that we've all made over the years, and even guys like I said, like the Sean Ermies, who went to Springfield and went to high school with Christy and played club with Christy, and then those connections lead to Nick and Max and Blake. But that's kind of what it's all about, just making those positive connections and having those relationships. Whether it's guys on the team or the guys that are trying to get on your team or guys that you're reaching out to, and that's the networking is the big part of it. So that's kind of how that panned out.
The volleyball world is very big, but also extremely small.
It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, all of us that have played the game for several years know that really well. So, talk to me about combining your guys the guys that have been with LVC forever that grew up playing PVL, and then the guys that are coming back from playing overseas this year, like a Scherzen, a Marshman, a Leeson. A million different experiences, all of them good, but they're different. How do you combine all of that into kind of a team mindset and a team goal?
Yeah, that's a tough part, and unfortunately, a lot of those guys' seasons got cut short.
Yeah,
from what's been going on. So I know that Blake's home, Marshman's home. I think Nick's still out in Poland, or if not, he's over in France, and Max is from France, so he was playing there and still there. But the guys that came home, and it's unfortunate that their seasons did end so quickly. But as far as getting those guys back with us and keeping the chemistry the same, volleyball is almost like a language, and if you understand the game and you understand how to play the game and relate to people, that transition isn't very hard. And those guys have been great, and they've been coached very well throughout their lives, and I like to think that we all have, as well, and we're very accepting of them, and they're very accepting of us. So the transition isn't, like I said, it's hard. It's great to have them, and they make such a huge impact with us. So just their experiences in coming back over, and they've learned things, we've learned things, and we kind of just share things. We always, are talking to each other about trying to be better and trying to get better as a group, but also individually. So it's not as hard as it seems, but
I like that.
Yeah.
I like the idea of volleyball as a language. That makes a lot of sense. I think Brian said that in my last interview too. Like, if you know how to play the game, it doesn't matter where you are at the moment. It doesn't matter where or who you've played in the past. If you know how to play the game, then you can rely on that, and that goes in with your teammates, and it goes for yourself against the opposition as well. I think that's a good way to put it.
And even talking to like guys that played overseas and didn't speak the language in the country they went, they can relate, and they can make those friendships with their teammates, without knowing the language as well. And they end up learning the language, but they have that connection through volleyball, and they can communicate, in one way or another on the court, just because that volleyball portion, like I said, it becomes a language. And I've had guys on the team, a guy, Elnis Palomino, didn't speak much English when he first started playing with us, and from the Dominican Republic, but he fit right in very, very well, seamlessly, and like I said, the communication wasn't, perfect as far as the language, but on the court, we could figure out what he was saying. He could figure out what we were doing, and it, went hand in hand. It's like I said, it's interesting. Volleyball is a cool communication device to be able to kind of connect to people.
Yeah, the language barrier thing for the guys that play overseas has always fascinated me a lot, and it once you get on the court, you do your thing, and it just kind of works, like you said. It's always cool to talk to people about that. And your guys, Blake and Marshman and everyone else, definitely people that I want to get on this show and talk to about that very thing. So let's talk about your role for the league really quick.
Okay. Yeah.
So you're one of several people on the board. You and like one of your longtime best friends, Will Foley.
Yeah. That's great.
So first, but before we talk about Will a little bit more, you're the VLA director of league development. What does that mean,
Correct.
and what do you do for the board?
So league development, I kind of oversee a lot of different things, whether it's the organization, how things operate, some different structural things. That kind of sounds very bland and multifaceted, but basically just helping out across all the decisions that are being made. I kind of have a hand in a lot of different things, making connections with different people, people at different events. Sharing experiences, and then just trying to share our vision and kind of like where we came from, and which is kind of one of our big MOs of the league, is sharing how we've got to where we are and making those connections to everybody that, whether they're a spectator or whether they're an opponent, just kind of sharing experiences and just teaching them how great the game is and how great our experience has been, and just trying to share as much as possible. So my league, as far as like my title goes, it's not as like I do one thing or the other, but I'm trying to help out across a lot of different areas, and whether it's with Vince, Coley, Loy, Will with the business aspect, Tim, Dan, so all those guys I kind of work hand in hand with.
Cool. So Will Foley is a businessy guy. He comes from Stevens Institute in Jersey, right? And he's just an old buddy of yours. How did you get him on board with this, and why is he so useful? I want to get him on the show later too.
Absolutely. He's a very smart human being. So I grew up, so it was my brother James, was the same year as Will in high school, and they played against each other, and they played club together growing up. So soon Will was, I think, 3 years behind me. And so Will, once he graduated, ended up playing with us in our adult team, and has been playing forever with us. And he went to Stevens, like you said, has an engineering degree, and is, like I said, insanely smart human being, and really got involved in some different business aspect jobs. And right now he's working for a company that he does a lot of different event planning for, and the business side of that. So he's brought a lot of knowledge and a lot of like the business, angled knowledge to us, and it helps because we always see things with the volleyball eyes, and he kind of see things with the monetary and the underlying business parts of it. So it's a good angle that he takes and helps us out as far as seeing some of the things that we can't see.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear more about that in detail from him whenever I get him on the show, but he is definitely a crucial piece of the league and the board's goals moving forward. So you guys have a call with the board at least probably once a week, according to what Coley was telling me. So it's obviously such a weird time for the league right now, because we're supposed to be on the court this weekend, and we can't be, and we can't put any actual volleyball out on the floor right now. So while all this is going on, what are the board's very short-term goals for the next month or two, while we're not sure how we're going to come out of this quarantine business?
The biggest thing is being patient to see kind of how things unfold, and then the next part of that goal would be to get the events in that would be safe to run, that would be available to play at, and that's kind of an unknown right now as far as what events are going to be still there and what events are going to be allowed to still be hosted. So the goal is to play as much as possible, but also put the best product out there. So we want to have the best teams available to be playing. We don't want to have a lot of switching. Some guys become unavailable because they still coach, they work, they might not be able to leave their house. So there's a lot of things that are kind of unknown. So like I said, goals are just being as patient as possible, kind of seeing where the JVA, the AAU, USA kind of all go with their decisions on their events, and then we'll make changes and plans accordingly. But we do plan on playing events whether it's the spring or the summer. We will have some events coming up. Cool. If they aren't the ones that we have, but we are planning on playing at the ones that are still scheduled, which is as of right now all of them.
Yeah, that's what we know right now, and being patient is a good virtue for everybody right now.
Yeah.
Nobody has a clue what's going on. Tomorrow could be completely different from today. But yeah, I know the league's goals are to put volleyball on the court for the people that are at the events and the people that are going to be watching on stream. So before we get you out of here, what is something that the people listening to this and the people that are fans in the league and want to follow the league can do to help us during this weird time and then throughout the future?
Yeah, big thing, making connections. So making connections with us, whether it's on the VLA level, just following us on the social media stuff, on Instagram, and through Facebook, through Twitter. I think we have all of them. The big one we kind of push is the Instagram. Also, so if you kind of get involved, I know there's a lot of different challenges out there. We're trying to make some interactive videos through Instagram, and then through YouTube, which your podcast airs through our channel, correct? Mm-hmm. So just watching the watchable hours of that, if you get involved and you make comments or you watch as much as possible on the Volleyball League of America YouTube channel, is one of the other best ways that you can kind of stay engaged. But those connections with us through the social media platforms is definitely the best thing right now, and just trying to be as involved as possible, because all that helps us grow. So if you can, give us a like on the pages, do some viewable things on the YouTube channel, that all benefits us in the growth of our league, and then we can provide more and more connections to more and more people.
Yep, well said. And I think that it's been said by a handful of people on the show. I need to make like an official motto out of this. But something about when we're at the events, there are like no barriers between us and the fans.
Yeah,
which is so cool. Just get to know us, get to know the guys, and right now you can't get to know us at events, so do it electronically. Hit us up on Instagram. Do whatever. Chris's Instagram and his team's Instagram are both on the screen here. If you're listening on audio, I'll put them in the description. So yeah, get engaged. Hit us up if there's anything you want to see, if there's any feedback you have, if you just want to express how excited you are for some volleyball. Great. We want to hear it.
And that's one of the coolest parts, is that the engagement is something that we want to do. We don't want to be away from people. We want to be engaged. We want to be on the court. We want to talk to you afterwards. We want to sign autographs. We want to share our experiences and our stories, because those experiences and our stories have brought us all together. I would have never met you if it wasn't for volleyball. I would have never met that Loy guy if it wasn't for volleyball. I would have never met any of these people. So it's important for us to share those experiences, whether it's live, face to face, or through the social media platforms.
Well said. All right, Chris, thanks a lot for joining me, man. I hope you can stay busy. Don't go crazy from boredom. Trying to stay in the house all the time. Everybody out there, stay safe, and thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
Yeah, I got one more thing before you go.
Let's hear it.
One more these here for you. So I will send this to you.
Yes.
And thank you for having me on the show. So I will send that in the mail. I'll touch base and get your address and send that out to you.
Beautiful. So, thank you, Chris. You got all the flamingo stuff I can get. I'm so all for it. It's awesome. All right, buddy. Thanks for calling. Everyone else, we'll see you later.
Thanks for having me. Take care, everybody.